Alright guys, Fuller coming to you with another video. Shout outs to the whole LGBT. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and if you want to, please subscribe to the page. And press the bell notification icon. I'll probably do one more social issue video, or I guess you can say one more pop culture video. After this one, this one doesn't have to do with pop culture. This is more or less having to do with a sensitive topic that, may offend people. And by no means do I mean to offend people or anything on this topic. It just kind of bothers me when, it kind of bothers me when people like get carried away and exaggerate things. And they don't do the research on the topic. Me myself, I'm still doing research myself. I'm still learning about this topic because, if you don't know, Africa is a very diverse place, and it has very diverse cultures within the continent. You know what I mean? Sure, we do have our common similarities with value systems and family, and with food, with certain ingredients in food, and religious solidarity as well. But at the end of the day, we do have like quite different social circumstances that might make us unique. And as I said before, I'll reiterate, I've been in this country for so long, so it's basically I'm assimilated into the general fabric of this country, but I'm not of the general fabric of this country. I don't subscribe to the political views of America. I don't subscribe to the value system of America, which is very, very much nothing. There really is no value here. As I said before, America is a settler colony. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's a dog-eat-dog world here, and it is what it is. If you have to really have a solid foundation here in order to keep your sanity, basically. Other than that, if you don't, you're gonna pretty much go off the deep end, whether it be through the partying, whether it be through cheating people in the rat race to build wealth. You can just look at it with politicians and how they do it. But I want to tap into something that is very sensitive, and people are gonna probably call me a coon. People are probably gonna call me a Uncle Tom. People are gonna probably call me a sellout. People are probably gonna call me all kinds of names after this video. But I'm reading a book right now because, for those of you guys who don't know, I was into Eritrea and its struggle before I even met Nip and built a rapport with Nip. Because their struggle had similarities to my pop struggle. When Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde were fighting the Portuguese and other superpowers in order to, basically fighting NATO, in order to gain our self-determination and independence. There are some similarities to the struggle, because literally we kind of started with nothing, in the fighting. And when you look at the EPLF, the same thing happened. It was like both of the struggles with the PAIGC, which is my pops movement, and the EPLF were kind of learn as you go struggles. You know what I mean? But there's one thing that I really want to touch on, that these Rastafarians, and no disrespect to them, I have nothing against their beliefs, that these Rastafarians and these Pan-Africanists and these conscious woke people like kind of like disregard and neglect. You know, they kind of sweep this thing under the broom, like under the rug, I mean. And I'm like you can't really sweep this under the rug because this is a part of history. You know, the how can I explain this? The trend among Pan-Africanists and among Rastafari is complete and total veneration in Ethiopia as the haven of Pan-Africanism, as the haven, the sanctuary of, like, I want to say, of like the Holy Land. You know what I mean? They put an emphasis on this a lot, you know. And I hate to say it, but that is not the case at all. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to be unpopular, but I am not a Pan-Africanist. You know, I'm a radical African in the sense that there can be no Pan-Africanism if there's problems within my own country. There's so many problems within Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde that need to be addressed internally, that unity within the country has to be first made before we talk about unity with other people outside of the country. You know what I mean? Things have to be fixed internally first. And when you look at any one of these guys, Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral, Sheikh Anta Diop, when you look at any one of them, they're still on those same lines. They're like, you know, yes, in the future, African unity is the ultimate goal in the future. But first, things have to be right within our own territory. They were always on those lines. You know what I mean? Every one of them. Because you have to look at someone like Thomas Sankara. He didn't go and vaccinate Mali. He didn't go and vaccinate like Guinea, Conakry. He vaccinated Burkina Faso first, his territory. You know? So that's what that is, you know? Of course, he went to New York. It's the fact that he went to New York, he went to Harlem, and he did give out some jewels for the African descendants in Harlem. That is a fact. But his still main concern was Burkina Faso first. I mean, he didn't invite anybody from Harlem to come to Burkina Faso, you know, to help with it. He knew that, like, Burkinabés had to search for their own dignity, and it wasn't going to be found outside with different people, you know, no matter if those people were African or not. You know what I mean? And so what I'm getting at is that with Ethiopia, and this is no disrespect to Ethiopia, this is just history, but Ethiopia was never a Pan-Africanist paradise as these Rastafaris and as these Pan-Africanists presented as. It was never that. You know, as a matter of fact, I mean, you may say that it is not colonized on paper. It wasn't colonized on paper, but it was 110% colonized, because it pretty much did what these Western nations asked of it. It did not act on its own accord. Haile Selassie never acted on his own accord. He never acted on his own accord. Sure, he defended the country against the Italians, but when it was time, he made backdoor deals in order to say, okay, you give me some of this territory, and, you know, we'll give you hegemony over we'll give you hegemony over the greater territory. And so what happened was, that's what happened. He never consulted with the Eritrean people about what they wanted. And so what he did is he just said, okay, well, I'll give you a slice of cake to the Italians, right? And then after that, the Italians said, okay, I'll give you this slice of cake to the British, and then the British said, okay, I'll pass off this slice of cake to the Ethiopians. And the Ethiopians, being Menelik and Selassie, said, okay, well, we'll take this slice of cake. We'll impose what we want. We'll put all the icing we want on this cake. And we're not going to even consult the ingredients of this cake, and the ingredients being the people of Eritrea, on what flavor they want. Like, do they want an independent flavor? Do they want self-determined flavor? Do they want to be annexed to us flavor? They never did that. You know what I mean? They never, ever did that. And so when you even look at Ethiopia never really assisted other nations, other African nations, in independence movements. And that's just the truth. As a matter of fact, my dad's leader, Amilcar Cabral, sought help from Ethiopia in order to fight in his struggle. He never got that help. Never. That help didn't come. So when these Rastafari and when these so-called Pan-Africanists talk about Ethiopia in high regard, no disrespect, but Ethiopia was an imperialist state. Ethiopia was anti-Pan-Africanist. No true Pan-Africanist is going to align itself with Israel or the United States as Ethiopia did. None. And that's exactly what it did. And so, to take it a step further, when the Eritreans were fighting for their self-determination, they had no help. They couldn't go to anybody else. So they went to radical Arab states like Syria, like Iraq, like Libya, like Sudan. And even with that, they barely got any help to do it. And so what the Ethiopians did, they said, oh, they're trying to Arabize the Horn of Africa. But the Eritreans, if you ask them, they will say that, no, this is an African struggle. We went to the Arabs because there was nobody else who wanted to help us. You know what I mean? They were not trying to Arabize it at all. And you have to realize something. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm just going to spill the beans right now. When we go into history, there is cultural links. When people say, for example, Abyssinia, I'm going to do it from an Islamic perspective because that's the only perspective I'm familiar with. If anybody wants to do it from a Christian perspective, fill me in the comment section. Let me know. But basically, when the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be peace, when they were getting persecuted and they fled to East Africa, known as Abyssinia at the time, they weren't in the territory known as Ethiopia. I talked to a Sudanese, and I also read that they were in the territory known as, we know today as Eritrea and Sudan, okay? And to take it a step further, there is proof of that. There is a mosque in Eritrea called the Sahaba Mosque. And that is the first mosque in Africa. That is the first ever mosque that was built in Africa. Okay? It wasn't in Ethiopia. So there you see that the cultural ties are there. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that ethnically Eritreans are Arab or identify with Arab. You know? As a matter of fact, you know, the ELF, the ELM, they were reluctant to seek help from Arab states because of the history of the Arab slave trade. You know, that was still in the back of their mind. You know what I mean? So, you know, when people say these things and people like go and, you know, when they make these accusations and stuff like that, you know, like Ethiopia's Pan-Africanness is like, it's false. It's false information. Haile Selassie didn't care about any other Africans. He was an imperialist. You know, all he cared about was power, his own power. You know, that's all he cared about. And Mengistu was the same way, and Menelik IV was the same way. You know? And to take it a step further too, as well, when these events happen, okay, when these events happened, there were already separatist groups in Ethiopia who aligned with the EPLF to actually go against Ethiopia itself. You know? So with that being said, you have to understand, if there is separatist groups in Ethiopia who teamed up with the Eritreans People Liberation Front to go against Ethiopia, it wasn't this Pan-Africanist utopia that is spoken about, you know? Another thing that I would like to iterate in this whole situation, basically, is the fact that, you know, for these Rastafari, because this is the thing, what triggered this video is, one, the book I'm reading triggered the video. Two, this Rastafari, you know, this one Rastafari video tries to like group Ethiopian, like tries to like interchange Ethiopians with Eritreans as if they're the same people. And as I said before in the previous video, they may be the same people DNA wise, ethnically wise, you know, they may be the same, but tribally and culturally there are differences. You know, they're similar, but they're different, and that's just reality. Their social, basically the society in which they came from is different. Eritreans came from a 30-year civil war. Ethiopians didn't come from that. They came from an imperial state, and that's just it. You know, and so that's what triggered this video. You know, and yeah, maybe I will sound like someone who's trying to divide and conquer, but I'm just trying to put it in a historical context. You know, that's just what I'm trying to do. I'm all for unity. I'm all for cohesiveness among people. But what I'm trying to say, we're not all the same. You know what I mean? When like for example, when a black person from America comes at me and says like we're all the same and stuff, no, we're not all the same. Phenotypically and ethnically, we may be all the same, but culturally and socially, we're different. I come from a place of like basically where, you know, where the struggle my pops fought kind of was short-lived, and the vision of it was short-lived, because Right after when Amilcar Cabral was assassinated, everything went downhill. Sure, we got our independence, but then, like, sure enough, it became a place where those in leadership abused power. And it went downhill from there. Basic infrastructure is lacking. You know, there's more have-nots than haves. I come from that. Now, yeah, I can relate to the struggle here, you know, because when I first got here, I was put right in the belly of the beast. I was put on in the Crenshaw-Slauson district. So I relate with that too. I can intertwine, but it doesn't mean that, like, we're the same. You feel me? Sure, some of our social circumstances become the same, but I still come from like a different culture and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of anti-Pan-African if you just discount like a person's struggle and what they went through and try to present this false sense of unity when it wasn't always the case like that, you know? So a lot of people are going to be offended by this video, but it is what it is, you know? I'm trying to be as like, this is my opinion on the matter, and I'm just trying to be as, you know, objective as possible without hurting anybody. But that's just what it is, you know? And I'm not trying to be mean, but I mean, you know, because of the whole thing with like Ethiopians and stuff like that, it affects their psyche. It affects how they act today. You know, I mean, when you look at it, you know, like Ethiopians carry themselves with like a certain amount of pomp and things like that, and that has a lot to do with their history. You know what I mean? And when you look at the history, it's, sorry to say it, but it's one of imperialists. It's one of, like, you know, monarchies and totalitarianism, you know? Whereas the opposite is for Eritreans. Like, it's one of struggle. It's one of, like, grassroots operations. It's one of self-determination. And it's one of war. I mean, a 30-year civil war is a long time. That's 3 decades of fighting. And I'm going to just end this. I'm going to just end it with this. And then this is all I got on this subject. Ethiopia, back then, I don't know about it right now, was pretty pro-Zionist. When you look at the bombing of Massawa, which was indiscriminate napalm bombing on women and children, okay, which they denied, there was no need for that. There was no need. So you Pan-Africanists and Rastafari, your doctrine is based on peace and prosperity, but bombing another fellow African people and doing it with the assistance of weapons from the Soviet Union and Israel is very anti-Pan-Africanist. And you guys, I'm sorry to say it, but you guys need to do your research, man, before you just jump the gun and become like so passionately intertwined with this idea of Pan-Africanism. You guys really need to research, man. Because I'm not the one to just go into something with a chicken like a chicken with his head cut off. I need to do the research. I need to find out what happened. you know, and that's just what it is. You know, I mean, sorry to say it, but you know, I don't agree with a lot of Pan-Africanists, and I don't agree with a lot of Rastafari. And I know you guys are from the Caribbean stuff, y'all my bros and stuff like that, but you know, it's cool if you study the Rastafari for like spiritual development and things like that, but and I'm not too familiar with it, but if you venerate like Haile Selassie, you're venerating a warlord, you know? You're venerating a guy who was an imperialist, who is responsible for a lot of death, and who collaborated with Western powers to meet his ends, you know? But anyhow, that's all I got to say about this whole thing. My bad if I offended anybody. I didn't mean to do that. It just is what it is. You know, I'm not trying to divide and conquer. And, you know, just leave your thoughts, leave your comments on this video. This is Fula signing out. Njara.